Aloha, welcome back to Hina Bear Farm. I wanted to show you guys this tree that's new to me. This is a gift from our friend Jay, so mahalo to Jay. And it really intrigued me, so I started kind of looking into it a little bit more. This is called a coral tree. It is in the legume family, Fabaceae, I think is the pronunciation. So it's a nitrogen fixer, which always kind of gets me interested. Fast grower. It's got really cool flowers. You can see a couple of them. I had quite a few more the other day. And it gets to be fairly large. It can be as tall as 60 feet in height. Spreading crown. It's got a few thorns on it. Let's see if we can get close enough. Get the right angle, we can kind of see here. Get one that's maybe to the side. Focus. Right here, maybe. So anyways, a few thorns, but they supposedly drop off as the tree gets older. This one looks a little beat up. It's in a pot, obviously. It was in the greenhouse, took a truck ride down the highway, so it was a lot fuller a few days ago. Dropped quite a few leaves, but it'll come back. Anywho, I found some seeds of this tree from a much larger specimen here on the Big Island, and I'm going to be planting a ton of it. One of the other things that intrigued me was that it not only grows fast, but it produces really soft wood, which is great for chop and drop. It breaks down pretty fast. So let me show you the seeds we got here and how we're going to prep them, get them ready for planting. And then this will be another support tree that we use in addition to our Scarification and ice cream bean, Sesbania. We'll probably use them similarly like to those trees, fast growing, shade producing, chop and drop for later. So let's check out these seeds. All right, so we've got our seeds here, and one dead giveaway that something is in that legume family is when you find the seeds and they look pretty much like beans. It's almost kind of look like coffee though after they're roasted. It's kind of crazy. Pretty cool looking bean. And so for a lot of legumes, especially the tree seeds, you want to scarify them before you plant them. And so we do a process where we scratch them up pretty good and then soak them in water for about 24 hours. So I'm just going to show you really quick how we do that. There's a lot of ways to do this. I just use kind of a standard pocket knife, but I like this serrated blade part, and I'll take each bean and very carefully just kind of back and forth with that serrated part. Just nick at it until I kind of dig in a little bit, and then I do another way and I just make an X like that. You got to be careful. You don't want to cut into the actual embryo inside the seed shell. You're basically just trying to kind of get that hard shell on the outside cracked open so that water can get in and start to expand it. Technically, these seeds are designed so that if they were just sitting in water for a while or moist soil, that water would eventually penetrate the shell, but it would have to break down the shell first. So obviously that would take a lot longer for that to happen. So this just speeds up the process and also ensures a higher percentage of germination for the seeds that you're using. One X like this is probably good enough. You can take a nail file and just file it down, but these seed coats feel like they're pretty thick. This is my first time growing these, but I've grown quite a few things like it. And when we soak this, we'll be able to tell after one night how effective the scarification was, because they'll typically swell quite a bit. Sometimes they'll do that without nicking too, but I think one with a hard shell like this, you really have to scarify it. And this sort of mimics in nature something like a bird coming along or a small mammal and chewing on the seed pod or the flesh around it or whatever, and then they chew this a bit and nick it, and they either drop it or in some cases they'll swallow it whole, and then when they poop it out, it's all kind of dinged up a little bit. So a lot of these seeds are designed that way. I don't know about these seeds in particular because I know a lot of legumes are poisonous to mammals, but that's how we do it. Pretty easy. So we've got about 20 of these seeds. We're going to nick them up like this, throw them in just this little shallow container, fill it up with some water, let it sit for 24 hours, and then we'll show you how we plant them. Here's a little bonus footage I just thought I'd randomly throw in here. Mountain apple season. This is pretty late. Usually we're having these in June, I think. I don't know what happened this year. It's already September. Finally getting the crop ripening up. If you've never had one of these, they are good. First time I had one, I thought it was very unusual, but they're very tart. They're like kind of very tanniny. And they kind of have a little crunch like an apple. They're very juicy. And first time I had one, I thought like, you know, it was okay. But then a couple of days later, I was like, I want another one of those mountain apples. Second time I had one, I was like, oh, these are delicious. Now I really look forward to mountain apple season every time. And these are pink mountain apples. And there's a more kind of common, very red one that is even more tart. So if you like tart, you'd probably prefer the red ones. These have a more subtler, kind of floral taste to them, but pretty good. All right, so we've had our seeds soaking for 24 hours. As you can see, they've plumped up quite a bit. So it means the scarification worked well. That water has soaked inside the seed coat, and now they're ready to plant. So we've got some of our pots ready here. The thing with a lot of legume trees is that they're taprooted. And so a seed tray that you might use for annual vegetables like this, not a good option for these types of seeds. They're really big seeds, so you need to plant them a little bit further down. And that's like almost near the bottom of the seed tray. And since they're taprooted, that root's gonna hit the bottom and then start to wrap around like immediately. Before you can transplant it out, it's just gonna be a mess in there. So you really want a deeper pot to plant something like this. These types of vials are pretty good. Obviously they accommodate a nice long taproot, but this is probably pushing it in terms of the seed size because the seed takes up, you know, almost a quarter of that total area of the top there. But I think it's worth trying. I've grown koa in these really well, and sesbania. They're pretty good. Now, one thing with these is if you're using potting mix with perlite or vermiculite in it, you want to take out big chunks because they take up like half of the space in there. So we'll try a few of those. We'll also just try some kind of standard pots, these like quart pots maybe, because they're deep enough to accommodate some roots. And then we'll take like a 1 gallon like this and probably plant, I don't know, 5 or 6 seeds in there. I also usually get pretty good germination from legumes, and so I tend to not overseed with these. I do 1 seed per pot, because if you get tons of them, then you just have to decide later, like, am I going to keep them all? Am I going to disentangle the roots and all that type of stuff? So otherwise, from here, it's pretty simple. With these pots, you can see that I've left a little space, so I'll just drop the seed in there. I'll cover that up to close to the top with fresh soil, water it in, and then we're good. With these types of pots, you know, typically they say you want to bury a seed twice its diameter. I don't think you need to go that crazy with these, but we'll go down probably about 1 inch. Just plop it in there, cover it up, water it in a little bit more. And then pretty much do that same thing with the bigger pot and just do it multiple times. And that one, of course, we will have to break them apart later, but it's a good way to kind of like save space and not have to use a ton of potting soil and a ton of pots if you're growing several seeds at once. These also, legume seeds typically sprout pretty quick, especially if they've been soaking like that. So I'd anticipate 3 or 4 days they're popping up. And then hopefully after 2 or 3 weeks, they've got 1 or 2 sets of true leaves on them, and we can look at transplanting them out. So we'll follow up with you on these later and let you know how they're doing. Again, we're going to be using these like a Gliricidia or an ice cream bean. So as a support tree for shade, chop and drop, quick growing, nitrogen fixing, all that good stuff that we need in our food forest here. So future updates will be coming. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time here at Ina Bear Farm. Aloha.